Greetings, astronauts, I guess. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I am looking at this game, Stable Orbit, which is one I recently bought through Steam. Although it's, having said that, there's a slight irony there because it's actually published by Green Man Gaming, who of course have their own game selling website. Now, what this is at the moment is honestly not a lot, but I think one of the reasons why it's been getting a little bit of attention is because it does seem to have the potential to be quite a fun game. Now, they recently put out a reasonably big even update for it. We're at version 0.71 at the moment, Perihelion it's called, and it basically added a bunch of specialized science labs among other things. But at the moment, I'm going to say this right at the start, it's kind of hard to recommend the game as it is. Generally speaking, when I talk about games, I mean, Subnautica is a perfect example. Subnautica, in my eyes, is worth buying, even though it's still technically an early access game, because there's a lot to do in there. There is a lot of gameplay in there. It is a playable game right now. Stable Orbit, on the other hand, not so much. I basically ran through pretty much everything there was to do in the space of about 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and that was after restarting multiple times once I actually understood what the various things were doing. So there's not really a lot of replayability. In fact, there's just not a lot of playability at all at the moment, but it could be something rather nice. Now, enough talking about it. I'll actually play it a little bit and show you what you can do at the moment. And what I'll actually go to my station that I have built, and we'll take a look at what you can eventually have. Now, this is after like less than a year of in-game time, and this rather odd-looking kludge of modules is basically a lot of science labs and a lot of habitation modules, plus the more obvious things like the solar panels. So the interface itself is not too bad at all. You've got your kind of main information panel. At the moment, I'm at a stage where I'm just like, I can accept every contract that comes along, and very few of them time out, for which there doesn't actually seem to be a penalty at the moment, but I'm sure that will come with time. But as you can see, I'm sitting on $173 billion. You start off with I can't even remember how much, but yeah, at this point there's nothing for me to do except sit and accumulate money and just build more stuff and build more stuff. We've got, as you can see, 73 astronauts on the station, and I don't know, I think with this particular station I'm just going to see how big I can build it and how many astronauts I can get up there. And it's just a case of making sure you've got enough stuff. Now, I think what this game kind of wants to be is Banished, and with the early game it does sort of have that difficulty curve of you have to learn what the various things do, and you have to not build too much too early. There are a couple of things that are upgrades that you have to research through other things. But, I mean, you start off with this one central module, and so you've got to build up slow. You've got to hit that growth curve just right. But it very quickly falls away, whereas with Banished, you have to keep that curve going all along, because you can't take it too slow with the early game of Banished, otherwise you have a massive population crisis, and everybody dies of old age, and then your village is just left abandoned. Or if you grow too fast, then suddenly you're going to have people don't have enough food, and they don't have enough clothes, and they don't have enough firewood, and suddenly everyone's dying of cold in winter, and they're starving, and there's diseases. So, you know, you've got to get it just right, and once you hit a kind of equilibrium in Banished, you can kind of cautiously grow, but there's always that thing of if you grow too fast, you're still going to head for certain doom. And of course, Banished has random disasters, which this game doesn't, which I imagine it will at some point, but at the moment the only way things can go wrong are if you basically don't have sufficient heating, well, not sufficient heating, but sufficient heat dissipation for your space station. So you start off with this core and about 7.5 no, 7,000 million? Well, I don't even numbers. Yeah, that would be like 7 billion under the US thing, but then in UK we use billions differently or something. I can't remember exactly, but so yeah, you start off with a pot of money and you've got your running expenses and this core module which generates a tiny amount of power. It can hold one crew member, and as you can see, it can hold a little bit of your survival resources, I guess we'll call them, so oxygen, water and food. Now of these, water and food get delivered from the surface, but oxygen you basically have to start generating yourself with the relevant part once it becomes available, and for that you need water. So I found after a while it was easier just to spam some more docking module things, because if you want to actually get anybody up on your space station, one of the first things you need to actually build is a shuttle dock, which is quite an expensive thing, but we'll go ahead and do that. And yeah, that'll bring an astronaut up. So yeah, it's just a matter of not doing too much too early, because the only way you get income is through research contracts. And unfortunately there aren't any penalties for failing those contracts, which I think I've said already, but you are missing out on the money that those contracts could have brought you. So we've spent a big chunk on the docking module already. After that, we are going to need. Well, let's have a look. So we've got the interface is a little bit like it doesn't always register that you're clicking where you want to click. Yeah, so we've got two types of like structural expansion, I suppose. So you've got pressurized nodes, and then you've got just a skeletal truss, which obviously costs less, but it's not actually, you know, astronauts can't in theory pass through it. Although at the moment I don't think there's any penalty for having a truss section, and then like if I had a lab or a habitat module there, I don't think the game would care. And it was only in this recent patch that the game stopped you from clipping things through each other, because before that it was just getting the players to, you know, it was sort of asking them nicely not to do it. So we'll build a small lab, because labs are how we make our money, so you want to start with that just ASAP. We'll also we'll build a couple of truss segments out the side as well, because we'll need some cooling, and the truss segments give you a space where you can stick on your external resource storage, I guess you would call it. Yeah, so that's built. The next shuttle is coming tomorrow, and we can actually hurry things up a bit, because it's quite nice to, like, there's a certain zen quality about the game in that you can just watch things float by. But no, I want the node. There we go. But it's not like, this is supposed to be an actual game in which stuff happens. It's not one of those games where it's just you're watching a floating mountain or whatever. So I guess we'll build a small solar array. Yes. So yeah, we don't have any, because we're now drawing power, and because we don't have a solar panel, it's actually not going to be giving us any like, we're during the night obviously you're relying on reserve power. There's no fuel cells or anything in this game, so we'll just build the solar, the heat dissipator under there, I think, actually. There we go. There's only one size of radiator. You get 3 different sizes of solar panel, but for some reason only one size of radiator. So we're still building the HAB module anyway. But yeah, what we're also going to need then is a bit of extra battery capacity. I've left the music on in the background, by the way, because the music's quite nice. So that just builds a little thing on the edge of that truss, and that will give us more reserve power, basically, because there's, I think, basically no battery capacity in the core module itself. It's only got these little solar panels, which you can't fold away. It would be nice if you could fold them away after a while, because they become a bit obsolete rather quickly, but no, that's just not the case. So yeah, the only, as I said before, the only way anything can go wrong at the moment is if this gets too high, and then parts can get heat damaged. But I don't think you can actually kill your crew. The crew will leave the station if it looks like there's not enough reserves of stuff, or you run out of your heat gets too high and parts start getting damaged. People will bail out, but honestly, like, as long as you build plenty of radiators, that's kind of the only thing that can go wrong at the moment, and that's down to player neglect rather than anything else. Oh, still building this lab module. Even they do take a while. I did, like, the first couple of times I tried to play it, I built a bit of everything and then very quickly ran out of money. So what you have to do is get the lab, and well, we actually need an astronaut first, but we need to if I actually pause that, we need to see where we are with these contracts, because they all have different expiry dates. Now there's a couple for unlocking further stuff, which there's very little research to unlock more stuff for the station, honestly, but like the system to do it is in place, so I can see there would be eventually, I don't know, maybe more parts that you could research, like large nodes that you could place down, because at the moment you have to stack lots of little nodes, which looks a bit meh, but yeah, at the moment it's fairly limited. So we've got let's see, that one's for the July 18th, so we'll take that one, but it's going to be quite a while before it actually completes. Oh, and yeah, that happens as well. The capsule to, I'm sure they'll fix that in time, but yeah, the capsule to actually deliver your people, if you don't put it on the leading edge of the station, it just flies through the station. Yeah. So we've got our lab. There's no personnel management at the moment. Well, I say that, there's very little. The crew operate in a kind of shift system. So there's a maximum of 3 shifts, and you can change what shift they are on, but you can't assign, like, there's no crew specializations, just anybody can work in any lab basically, and labs are the only thing that crews do pretty much. It is, you know, they do research which gets you money, and then you build extra bits on the station. So it's a very closed cycle. There's very little to do once you've hit a certain point. At this early stage, it's a little bit like, once you've figured out how to do it, it's not so bad. Like you don't struggle to get things in place, as it were. But beyond that point, it's really, there's really nothing to worry about. So we'll build a waste recycler. I think I'll also build an oxygen generator, which we've got enough money for at the moment. And then after that, I think we'll probably want a small hab module, which we'll build off the side, I guess. Small habitat 1.5. And then we sit and wait for a contract to complete. So with the, you know, this is the basics with everything I've got here. We've got one crew member who can work in the lab part of the time, so we can actually pin that and see our progress and fast forward, and hopefully, what was it, the 18th? Hopefully it will complete in time. And the only real difference you can make to the speed at which a contract gets completed, because there's no crew skills or anything like that, is to build the bigger labs which can house 2 people, and to have enough astronauts so that they are crewed around the clock. So there's very little, like, for a management game, which is I think what this is essentially aspiring to be, you know, it's part sim, part management. It's pretty basic at the moment, to be honest. There's not that much going on, but you know, it looks rather nice, I suppose. So, you know, if it's the kind of thing that you think you might be interested in, it's a game where I would say stick it on your Steam watch list, and you know, keep an eye out for people doing videos on it, and oh, we needed more water tanks apparently, but I think we can actually build more water tanks at the moment. Never mind. So yeah, we've had a crew member leave, but you know, the thing's brought another crew member maybe, or has it not? No, it hasn't. So we actually have no crew on board now. So but having said, you know, oh, it's fine, I know what I'm doing, apparently I, you know, didn't quite know I was doing enough, but it doesn't matter. You know, they'll send another crew member up in like 7 days, and that'll be fine. And are we still progressing? No, okay, we actually aren't progressing on the contract anymore, which must, you know, would be a bug if that was happening. But anyway, so yeah, stick it on your Steam watch list. Watch out for people doing videos. I think Scott Manley's done like 2 videos on it now. But yeah, there's not really a lot here at the moment. It's pretty basic. It doesn't take very long to go from that to this, where it's just literally like I don't even bother looking at when contracts are going to expire. I just go da, 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 and it's just churning out the money, and there's not a lot to do except just continuously expand and see how big I can get. You could probably with a bit of practice make some quite pretty looking stations, but at this point it's just watching it orbit. There's very little for me to actually do apart from add new bits. Now, if you want something that actually does give you the experience of designing and building a space station and managing a bit, managing it a bit even, Kerbal Space Program, basically, with a couple of mods. So you get Kerbal Space Program, you get maybe a couple of part packs. There are a couple that specifically add parts for space stations, and you get a life support mod. And if you're playing on a career mode, there might even be mods that add contracts specifically for space station stuff, because there's some space station stuff in, you know, generally it's contracts to build new space stations in Kerbal Space Program, but I'm just guessing there are ones that add extra station contracts because it's the kind of thing that somebody would do. But even if there aren't, just with the various life support mods that are available and all the different kind of mods that add parts that you can use for space stations specifically, there's still a lot more gameplay just in that in Kerbal Space Program, never mind the rest of the stuff that Kerbal Space Program could do. But I will be keeping an eye on this myself as well. I mean, I've bought it now apart from anything else. It's got potential, it's got promise, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's worth buying right now, so I wouldn't particularly recommend it. So this is Stable Orbit, which is not really a game at the moment, but kind of, but stay tuned for what it will be in the future, because it might end up being something quite interesting indeed. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, you can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.